Hey guys, I'm back. I'm interviewing one of my great friends, Brent Braun.
Hey, how are you, Jake?
I'm good. I'm good. He is great. He has his own business called the Magic Form, and he works for us. And he's a great guy. He's really smart. With Vision Impossible. I heard that sold out worldwide.
Yeah. Position Impossible is currently sold out. We'll have a couple more back in Penguin in the middle of September, so we got a couple weeks till we get that back out. So we will have them available. It's a good and bad problem to have when you sell out.
Yeah.
Well, I watched the show. So we say first-time visitor, long-time viewer, right? I love what you're doing here, so keep doing that. Yeah, I really enjoy it.
Nice. From your feedback, by the way, I'm just saying it's amazing because you are a genius. I gotta say, in my point of view.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that's a little higher than I am. I'm probably down a little lower than that. But I appreciate you putting me on that pedestal, Jake. One day you'll be older and more mature, and you'll realize, like, why did I think that guy was a genius?
Yeah.
Your list will change pretty quickly.
If you want a magic business at all, not the magic form, not for like anything, even if you want a performer, what would you be? How magic related?
Wow, that's a tough question, right? So I think I enjoy magic, especially the creation side of magic, because I get to solve problems.
Yes.
Right? So I think ultimately I would be a problem solver. I would work in some business where I get to work with other people and they brought us something and we had to solve that problem. I don't know if that would be through like visually solving problems in advertising or in ad work, or technically solving problems in like being an engineer. I don't think I'm smart enough to be an engineer, but that sort of idea of putting things together and putting pieces together is something I really enjoy. So I think I would do something that worked with other people and involved me sort of solving problems in interesting ways, whatever that means.
Good answer.
Yep.
I'm a bit of suspense, y'all.
You're making me nervous.
Really?
Yeah, a
I
little
did
bit.
my job. Okay. If you could hang out with any magician, dead or alive, like get there in their head, show them your ideas, understand their perspective, get into their mind. Any magician, any dead or alive from any time.
Sure.
Like anyone. Like who would you hang out with? Who would you want to talk to?
That is a tough question. Maybe one of the toughest questions I've ever had, right? Because for me there's so many variables, right? Like where I'm at in my life today versus where I was in my life 20 years ago when I was doing magic. What project I'm working on and what I'm doing, because that sort of changes my mindset entirely. So it would probably depend on which day you ask me, right? It depends on if we're talking about the current me or if we're talking about the 15 or 20 years ago me, right? Because 15 or 20 years ago I cared more about sort of the way cards handled and the way cards moved. And if you asked me then, I would have probably said Erdnase, right? And not to sort of meet Erdnase and find out who he is and bust him out. It's not that I care about that side of the story. Yeah. It's just about sort of talking to him about why the book was written and what he thinks about certain things and why certain things may have been left out of the book and why certain things were included in the book and sort of where he drew the line and that sort of thing. Because I just really love the idea of the way things moved and pushed. The same guy I might meet 20 years ago, I might say Charlie Miller, also because I'm just a huge fan of all his work. But if you move forward into the last 10 years, I've been more looking at magic more theatrically and less sort of move. 20 years ago, I was just a guy who wanted to do magic for myself. All the moves felt good, and I liked the hand movement. Now I do magic sort of to make an experience for the audience, which is much bigger for me, right? And I'm much better. But because of that, I care less about those things. So then I might say somebody like Ricky Jay, right? Because 15 years ago, I got a VHS tape of Ricky. Do you know what a VHS tape, or are you too young?
I think, it's one of those big blocks you copy people on. They're like huge.
Yeah, it's real big. They're like 2 feet by 3 feet, and it has magnetic tape in it, and they'll give you cancer. So be careful. They're dangerous. That's why you don't see them anymore. A lot of people don't realize that. It's a government conspiracy to get rid of all of them. That's why Blockbuster videos don't exist anymore. They were just giant buildings that could just kill you. That's not true. I made that up. Blockbuster's going to sue us for that. It was a joke. I'm just kidding.
Even though I could run down.
Can you guys beep out Blockbuster when we say it there? Anyway, I had a VHS tape of Ricky Jay and his show, The 52 Assistants, which was a theater show that he did, which eventually got filmed and aired on HBO, and a bunch of magicians sort of VHS taped it, and then it sort of got passed around and copied it. And so I had a version of that was really crappy, and the first 2 minutes were gone, but it was just sort of there. And I really enjoyed watching it because for the first time I saw that magic could be smart. Before this I was watching magicians do the sort of L&L videos where the audience was faked and the jokes were all the same and they all felt sort of, magic still felt a little hokey to me and not smart. And then when I saw this, it sort of changed everything. And not only magic, but just card tricks. Ricky Jay's 52 Assistants is almost entirely card tricks. He does one thing that's not card tricks, but everything else is just a full theatrical production of card tricks. And it's interesting, and it's theatrical, and it's smart. So if I could meet Ricky Jay, I'd love to just sit down with him and talk to him about that process and how he was able to sort of break ground and do that show. And you know, also I think he has the chops to show me some good magic and fool me too.
Yeah.
Which would be incredible. So I think that would probably be the guy. And if you get a chance, you should find Ricky Jay's 52 Assistants on YouTube or the internet somewhere. You'll be able to get a copy of it and watch it. I was just lucky enough that I want to say it was probably 10 years ago now. Ricky performed. He had retired the show, wasn't doing it anymore, but they did a show in Washington D.C. for a theater down there. So I was lucky enough to see the show live, and it's one of the most memorable theatrical experiences I've ever seen. You know, just because of the way it. I love theater and I love magic. And these two, he just melds these two together in a way that's incredible. So, but I will say I'll probably get that answer tomorrow, because if you ask me tomorrow who I want to meet, it's probably a completely different person. It depends on what book I've read or what project I'm working on or where I'm going.
Yeah,
you know? That influences everything. So let's put an asterisk beside that. No offense, Ricky. If you're watching this, Ricky Jay, I don't mean that I don't want to meet you. I would still love to do that, even tomorrow. So call me.
Wink, wink. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Who would you meet as not magic related? As not a magician, as working line magic, dead or alive, like any smart
person,
like anybody, a president, a magician.
No, because I mentioned earlier that I like to solve problems. I'd have to go with Albert Einstein, right? Like just and not only just because he's super smart, we all know that, and he's smart on a level I would never understand, right? I could have a 20-minute conversation with him and have no idea what the hell he's even talking about. But the idea that not only is he really smart, but he's also really quirky and really sort of like, I think it would just be amazing to sit down and have a conversation, to ask that guy some deep question and not even understand what the hell he's talking about. You know, just smile while he just blows your mind with some of the stuff, you know? I think it would be incredible.
Yeah, it probably would. I didn't thought about Einstein. I thought Nikola Tesla.
Oh yeah, that's another one. Right? Sure.
I thought, but the people have been wondering when I haven't answered your question. I'm gonna answer this one. Someone, because that's just to me, who I would like to anybody. Titanic Thompson would be amazing to talk to.
Sure.
And I think that would be the I know everyone's like, you pick Titanic Thompson over all these big people. I know, but it's just like right now, like you said.
Of course, right.
Like right now, I'd be like Titanic Thompson immediately.
The problem is you're at a very young and impressionable age. That could be very bad for you, right? You could just like start hanging out in bars and pool halls and cheating people out of money, right? Like I could see how that would
what do
be
I do now?
A very bad influence. Yeah, that could be that could be bad for you, really. I mean, but no, I completely see the sort of approach to that, because he's a guy who's bigger than life. When you read those stories, he's definitely one of those guys that's bigger than life, right? Very similar to, like, you know, going back to magicians, David Berglis. That would be my answer tomorrow, maybe, if I could meet Ricky Jay. I would meet David Berglis and just let him fry me with something, you know? I absolutely love both of his books, but I love how he's willing to go so far to accomplish something very similar to what Titanic did, right? Like, just to set something up and days in advance, weeks in advance, months in advance, just so he could win money from somebody is sort of incredible, you know? It's like, you just have to sort of be in awe at that moment, you know?
Let's go back into the magician performing thing. Where was the strangest place you performed?
Oh, wow. These are all tough questions, really, right? You know, one of the strangest places I ever performed, and it was one of my favorite performances. I used to perform in an art gallery.
Oh,
There's
wow.
an art gallery in Louisville, Kentucky, and I would go from sort of area to area, talking about the art and then doing magic that sort of related to the art. And when I did it, I sort of wouldn't know anything about the art. I wouldn't know who the artist was. I wouldn't know when it was painted. I wouldn't know any of the history or any of the facts. And I would just walk around and make shit up. Make stuff up, I'm sorry.
No, you got it's fine.
But I just walk around and make stuff up. So I'd walk up to the painting and I'd talk about, like I knew what it was, and I would just sort of make stuff up about the art and then relate that to what it was. And people knew that's what I was doing, right? It was supposed to, my character was sort of like a con man who was walking through this art gallery and pretending he knew way more than he knew. And then I would relate that to a magic trick somehow. Yeah, it was super fun and very interesting. And the people that got it loved it. There were a couple of people that didn't get it. They didn't understand.
Did they actually believe you, or like
they just thought I was an idiot. They didn't understand like that I was in character and that this was a shtick. They were just like, he said this was painted in 1924, and right there it says 1689, right? Like he's an idiot. He's just making this up. But the people that got it, like sort of got it, and it was really fun and really funny. But the people who didn't were just like, what?
Yeah, I was at an art gallery once, somewhere in Houston, and basically I made a joke as people thought it was real. Well, basically, the last step wasn't there, but I was talking about art, but specifically to my father, and I was like, some of the greatest pictures are just nonsense. And he's like, what? Like Last Supper. Jesus with his brothers and cousins eating dinner. I don't get it. And first time people would not like me saying that. Do you like performing more or being behind stage and helping people out?
Because I like the problem solving thing. I mean, obviously I really enjoy both. But the truth is
Yes.
I actually prefer helping people out behind the scenes. Because it allows me to think and create in a way I wouldn't normally create, right? Like, I would never decide that I want to do a trick where I come out on stage and 3 ropes turn into a duck. Right? It's a dumb trick. I would never want to do that. But if someone comes to me and says, hey, I'm working on this show that's about ropes and ducks and we want to do this, I then have to solve that problem in that way.
Yeah.
And it's a problem I've never even thought about, right? That's why I really enjoy working with other people and sort of consulting with other people and having conversations with them, is because they bring me problems that I would have never put in my show or ever even thought about. So it sort of expands my thoughts and my sort of, gets me out of the rut. Because I've got sort of tricks that I've still been working on for 15 years that I still don't have what I consider the ultimate solution, right? I mean, when I release magic into the world, I always try to make sure it's something I've done for 3 to 5 years. I don't make something on Wednesday and produce it and sell it on Friday.
Yeah.
Almost every trick I've done I've been doing in the real world for 3 to 4 years, so that I sort of understand all the problems that can happen and I've corrected them and the trick gets better over time. I'd never want to be a guy who releases a trick and then a year later releases 2.0, right?
Yeah.
I appreciate my customers more than not giving them everything at once.
Yeah.
But because of that, I get stuck in ruts, trying to solve one problem one way. And I'm trying to figure out what is the best way to solve this problem for myself. And in the process of doing that, I just get stuck thinking this way. So then when somebody comes along and sort of hits me the other direction and says, hey, I want to make ropes turn into ducks, I go, okay. And it allows me to sort of think differently about where we're going. Right,
I don't know why you think of that.
I don't know why you would want to do that, but those sort of thoughts are what sort of I like help get me out of the rut and think about things I would never do, because I create a lot of magic now that I would never do, which sounds crazy, but it's because I'm creating it for someone else, which is fun. So I actually prefer the consulting more. And also it's sort of risk-free, right? I mean, we've all done those shows where you walk off stage and you're miserable and you're like, that was the worst show I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And you feel miserable when you go to your hotel room alone in a city with no one you know, and you try to sleep till 4 in the morning and you're like, what could I have done to solve that problem? What could I have done better? What did I do wrong? And sometimes it's just the audience. And sometimes the audience still loved you. Right? Sometimes it's an audience of 150 people and 100 of them line up to get autographs with you and they talk about how great the show was, but internally you don't feel it. Internally you feel like, I missed this beat and I missed that beat, and you're sort of, working too hard to get there. So I don't get that with consulting. With consulting, I give you the idea and you take on the risk, which is sort of nice, right? When I create a method or I write a line for you or a joke, and then you go out and you do the line, the joke, or the trick, if it fails, you're the one that feels miserable, not me, right? Which is sort of nice too, because I am anytime before I perform, I'm sort of a day before. My wife says I'm a mental wreck. She's like, don't talk to me, leave me alone, right? Because I'm just sort of very tense about what I'm going, and I'm sort of redoing the new lines or the new bits in my brain. I'm sort of rehearsing everything. So leave me alone. Shut the door. Leave me alone. I'm sort of snappy and in that zone. Then when I'm on stage, all that goes away.
Yeah.
As soon as I get up there and they introduce me, all that sort of melts away, and I just do what I do and it works. But up until that point, I hate to perform. Like for that 24 hours before I perform, I go, why do I do this? Why do I do this?
So what is your favorite effect by you have to perform?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on the situation, obviously. I really love Position Impossible, right? The theatrical sort of build in that trick, I think, it takes what can be sort of an interesting thing where somebody names a card and somebody names a number, and it's an interesting trick.
Yeah.
I've sort of built this theatrical build into it that makes people really care about it, even though I don't hook it to a story and I don't relate it to animals or to love or to life or to anything. I don't really, there's no metaphor that I sort of give it. But just the way I sort of theatrically build it, it sort of becomes a metaphor, right?
Yeah.
Which is sort of strange, because I don't ever say, this represents you and this represents him, and if they come together, you all will be together forever. I don't do that.
Yeah.
I just sort of talk about how there's any number and any card, and at this exact moment, at this exact time, if this works, right? Which is maybe a metaphor, but it doesn't involve little cute stories and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just that. So. And then close up and at a bar, my kickback transposition called Kickback Transpo I think is my favorite trick I've ever created.
Wow.
Right? My favorite trick I perform. Really, let's go there. My favorite trick I perform. Because it's so much fun on the audience. Because as soon as they think they sort of understand what's happening, everything they know is gone. Then you get that kickback moment. My favorite trick I always ever created, though, might be ball through glass. Ball through glass, without sort of talking about it too much, is that it's one of the few magic tricks I've ever created where the method disappears once the trick is performed.
Yeah.
And because the method disappears, the method never existed, which is really weird, right? So you have this invisible method that no one can see, and as soon as the trick happens, that invisible method disappears. So now everyone who tries to recreate that in their mind, they're missing a piece to the puzzle, so they can never put it back together. Because first it's invisible, and then it disappears. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you know the ball through glass, if you don't, it's on my DVD, Decks and Deceptions at penguinmagic.com.
How can you tell our audience how to join the Magic Forum or to find it or what they do and stuff?
Sure, yeah. You go to themagicfirm.com. You can find The Magic Firm on Facebook, The Magic Firm, or you can find me on Facebook, Brent Braun on Facebook. You can send me a message if anybody has anything I can help them do. I'd love to sort of get involved and help them out. We do work on a lot of different projects. And The Magic Firm is not just about creating magic, right? We create magic, but we also help people write business plans. We help people. What I noticed was that I had a lot of friends who were great entertainers, but they didn't understand sort of the magic, the business side of magic, right? So that's sort of what we do. We can consult you on all those things to sort of build a marketing strategy for you, help you film promo videos, and talk about how we can save you money and make you money by getting you a good promo video. Scripting, we've got an on-staff script writer who can help you sort of go through your script. And we do that even if you don't have a script. I ask a lot of people when we start working, I say, send me a copy of your script. And they say, well, I don't have one. And I say, well, send me a video and I'll have one made. So we just watched your 12-minute thing and have a guy who transcribes all that into a script.
Nice.
And then you end up with a script. And the reason that's important is because when you read it, you'll realize how many things you're saying that aren't pushing you forward.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you don't have a script like we don't have here, we just sort of tend to ramble and talk, which is fine in this interview. Because they're stuck watching us. They already clicked play, right? But if I'm in a theatrical experience, you sort of have to get them involved in the show and get them to want to follow you. And without a script, you start doing things that don't lead to that end. So you have to be working on a script, And that doesn't mean you have to stick to it either. There are still things that will happen that'll be improv and you'll make up as you go. But because you have a script, it'll get you back to that a little bit faster, get you back into that forward momentum. So we offer all those things, and that's themagicfirm.com. Or you can find us on Facebook or Twitter or any of those things.
Yeah, social media stuff.
Social media stuff, yeah.
What if someone starts doing like not called Magic Forum, but what if they start doing the exact same thing?
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, I'm sure there are people that have done what I'm doing already, right? Ultimately, look, as the goal, right? One of the things we talk about when you talk about a business is you have to write a sort of what is the business goal, right? That's one sentence. What is your business going to do, right? And ultimately, I say that our sort of business plan is to make magic better by making better magic. That's sort of the idea. If we can make because I can't guarantee that if you hire the magic firm, I can't guarantee that your show is going to be good when you leave. But I can guarantee it's going to be better. Right?
Yeah.
Which means if you were doing an okay library show and you brought it to me and said, hey, Brent, I want you to go over this okay 35-minute library show with me, I can't guarantee that you're going to leave with this theatrical 35-minute experience where people give you standing ovations and cry at the end. I can't guarantee that's going to happen. But I can guarantee that at the end it's going to be much better than when it started. Which means you're then out there making better magic. So if someone else picks up that idea and they decide they want, and I want to make better magic not just for the magic firm, but for the magic community.
Yeah.
So if Jake starts the Magic Incorporated consulting company or whatever he calls it, doesn't call it the magic firm, but if he starts that and starts with the same goal of making magic better, I completely think it's a great idea. I think we need more people who are willing to do that, and we need more people who are willing to sort of spend time hands-on helping people out that way.
What if someone takes one of your tricks and performs it, says it's theirs, and they get famous for it? You get on the news, like, this trick is amazing, but it's still yours. Like, what if not one of your famous tricks, Mission Impossible, but a minor one, like maybe you just invented, and know about it yet, and it's just happened.
Yeah, so I don't know. The easier answer is what I wouldn't do, and this is where I think everyone goes wrong. I wouldn't take to social media and beat them up and get all my friends to join in and beat them up and have this sort of passive-aggressive argument that doesn't do anybody any good, and ultimately everyone from the outside sees what magic is trivial and disgusting, right? Because it is sort of ugly when we get into these sort of...
Yeah.
It's different if it's debates in private forums where there are only magicians, and it's different if it's you and I sitting here talking about it. But to just go on social media and have 5,000 fans that I have, and half of them are magicians and half of them aren't, and to just sort of air our dirty laundry and say this guy's a jerk because he stole this, is the completely wrong way to do it. Magic's such a small community. You and I can get anybody we want on the phone right now. I mean, it's going to sound crazy, but if you and I have an issue with David Copperfield, we can in the next day or two, we can talk to Copperfield on the phone if it is a true issue and we need to have that conversation. And he's sort of at the top. So if you and I need to talk to Marcus Eddy, we can make 3 phone calls and we have him on the phone. If we need to talk to anyone out there, if I need to talk to Diamond Jim, it doesn't matter. Anybody we need to talk to tomorrow, you and I can get that phone number in just a couple of hours, and we can be on the phone with that person. So if somebody goes on TV and sort of steals my idea, or they start taking credit for it, I'm going to have a conversation with them, right? And I can do that by sort of getting their phone number, calling them up and having a conversation with them and saying, hey, what makes you feel this way? Why are you doing this? Let's really have a conversation. And I think what you find then is it's no longer passive-aggressive arguments. They're sort of, it was a misunderstanding. They thought that they had done it right. Because there's also 2 things that happen here. Tortured and Restored has been performed on television a lot of times.
Yes.
Right? It was done by Richard Jones to win Britain's Got Talent. He didn't talk to me about that beforehand. People that watch and see that believe that's a Richard Jones trick. And I don't mind. I don't care at all. Because when I sell it, I give him the rights to perform it anywhere he wants and to do with what he wants. And I don't think in that sort of performance situation, you don't have to give credit. You don't have to perform a trick and go, that's in Marlowe, but you don't have to credit every time you do a trick, especially theatrically, and you shouldn't. When I sell you the trick, I'm sort of selling you the rights to perform it and to own it in your show. The place that becomes different is if you take my Torched and Restored and publish it, and let's say you made a small minor change to it, and you felt like that change was big enough. Of course, and you thought that change was big enough. So you sort of published it, but you didn't put my name in it, even though you know that I had the original version. That's sort of when we need to have a much deeper conversation. So when Richard Jones performs Tortured and Restored on television, I don't want him to give me credit and tell his audience this isn't a trick I created, right? Because he really did pour himself into it, and the sort of story he gave it was great, incredible, and that's why he won. He didn't really win because of Tortured and Restored. He may have though, so you should buy it. It's a good investment. But so that sort of it's like I'm really honored that he had one shot, he had one opportunity,
one moment
to own it, to capture everything everyone ever wanted.
Palms are sweaty, knees. Okay, I'm not gonna say.
Mom's spaghetti shirt already. Anyway. But I really am sort of.
Why am I on this photo already?
I really am sort of honored that he's taken that trick and done that, so he doesn't have to credit me there. And I don't want him to credit me there. And I think some magicians get upset with that idea. I see some people who say, oh, he won this show with my idea. Well, you sold your idea. It's no longer your idea. It's the magic community's idea at the moment that you push publish. And then the other thing I think, and this recently happened with me, is that you also don't have to give credit in ad copy, right? If you put out a trick and it was inspired by somebody else, in the ad copy you don't have to say, this is Burnt and Restored, inspired by Brent Braun, or, as long as inside of the content, somewhere you're saying, thank you, Brent Braun, for creating this idea because it inspired me to change this one thing, which I think makes it a better trick. And when to publish is always a personal thing. Somebody has to decide when they think they've changed it enough. But that's all on them. But again, if I don't think they've changed it enough, I'm not going to go on Facebook and burn them. I'm going to get their phone number. It takes me an hour, right? I mean, it's not hard. And it's not just me. If anybody out there has a beef with anybody in magic, message me. I'll get you their phone number, right? We all have deep enough Rolodexes that we can figure this out. And we don't need to go air our dirty laundry in front of everyone.
I'm joking.
I guess we don't have Rolodexes anymore, but
Have any advice to anybody who wants to start magic, who wants to be a part of Magic Home, who wants to get on Full List? Have any advice for any of that?
Yes, work.
One word of advice.
That's it. Yeah, no, there's no other way to get there, right? Like if you talk to pilots talk about flight time, right?
Yeah.
How do you know if the pilot's good? Well, he's got 100,000 hours flight time. He's got 10,000 hours flight time. What that means is that he got in a plane, it went in the air, and he landed it, and he was alive.
Yeah. No
right?
problems.
Right? No problems. He made it from point A to point B and didn't die. That's how a pilot gets sort of airtime, right? Is to do point A to point B and not die. The exact same happens with magic. You need to go do a show. You need to perform for people. You need to get out there and do it for real people in the real world. Because the longer your time you spend performing, the more time you spend in the air, the better you are at sort of dealing with those situations, right?
Yeah.
Because when the pilot's in the cockpit, sometimes things go wrong. But you never know that in the back. You know, when you're flying in the plane, you have no idea how many times something goes wrong with the pilot because his job is to fix it, and he can fix it because he's done it so often. So I think when people come to me and they say, oh, I want to start doing, you know, I'm 21 years old, I want to do magic professionally. I just wrote this show, how much can I book it for? Who have you performed it for? Well, no one, but I think how much money can I get for it? It has no value right now. Without flight time, it has no value. So go volunteer to do it at the local old folks home or the local daycare or the local Red Cross, or, you know, go somewhere and do this show for real people a lot, as much. And even if it's not a show, even if it's a single trick, when people send me a trick and they go, oh, I think I want to publish this trick, and I see it and I can tell it's very new. Like they made it on Tuesday and they're sending me this on Wednesday. My number one thing of advice would be go work it. Take that trick out and show it to real people. And you're going to immediately find out if it does work, if it doesn't work, and what needs to be changed or fixed. But you can only sort of understand what can go wrong in the air by getting the plane in the air, you know? So that's my bit of advice, is that you're going to learn way more from working 100 shows than you're going to get paying the magic firm to come in and talk to you about your show, right? Yeah. If you do that show 100 times, it's going to get better. And what we do is sort of polish the show once it's in the air. We sort of show up and we see that the show's in the air and we say, okay, let's make it more aerodynamic, let's shift this, let's move this, let's make this more sellable. Maybe we just need to make it prettier when it lands, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we just need to advertise that it's never crashed. I don't know what, but we sort of get into that sort of mindset of fixing it once it's already been in the air a lot. But you just have to work. There's no shortcut.
Last question. I want to talk about a subject that everyone's talking about. Not the reason I want to talk about it, but you have a great mind and you have a great perspective on many things. How do you feel about the Jabrizi incident and all that going on?
Yeah, you know, I see both sides of the argument. I do. But I also come from a school of thought that nothing is unethical in magic. It's all fake, right? We can say, oh, Jabrizi faked reactions. Well, the truth is, we've been faking magic. That's, by definition, magic is fake. If it wasn't, it would be supernatural, and it would be something completely different, right? So my big complaint with all of that was sharing the video, as I talked about earlier, burning people on Facebook. If you have a problem with what Jabrizi's doing, let's get him on the phone. Let's have a phone conversation with him. I don't have Jabrizi's phone number right now, but I know people that do. And we can have his phone number, we can have that conversation with him. Not aggressively, but to sort of coach and teach him and say, hey, I'm going to be in Chicago. I'd love to sit down with you. Let's talk about what is good for magic so we can both make better magic, right? That's so that magic is better. That's sort of what we want. I think that's what we all should strive for. So the place I had a problem with is when people just clicked share on Facebook and became warriors of protecting us against fake magic instead of really having a conversation about what it meant. But for me personally, I don't believe that anything is unethical in magic. I believe that if I want to pick your pocket 2 days before the show and get your driver's license number and then go on Facebook and search your whole thing before you show up at the show and I want to do it, that's completely fine. In the same turn, if I just want to hire an actor to sit in my audience who stands up and says, we've never met before, and he names exactly the card and exactly the number I want, I don't think it's unethical. I think the place it becomes a problem is when the method becomes obvious, right? If you're using it in such a way that we know it's a camera trick, or we know that they're stooges, or we know that there's one thing, I think that's when it becomes a problem. But that's not an ethical problem. That's a magic problem. If people watch it and go, there's no way he really did that because no one would react that way, right? Mm-hmm. Those were fake reactions. Yeah. Because that is how you sell it, as fake reactions. The magic's not fake, right? They're just fake reactions. And then you don't even have to advertise to lay people that they're fake reactions. If the fake reactions are bad enough, lay people will know they're fake. Right? I think Jabrizi just wants something different out of magic than Chris Ramsey. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Everybody wants something different out of magic, right? I think that's why we're all individuals, and that's also why we push magic forward. But what Jabrizi wants is no less valuable than what Chris Ramsey wants. Right? What they both want is important. Yeah. It's important to them, and I think it's important to the community. Because at the end of the day, Jabrizi is getting a lot of attention for magic. And that's going to book a lot of shows to people. And then people sort of get the other conversation is, well, then when I show up and do my show, people won't react that way. and people will think I'm not as good as Jabrizi, which is a very weird thing for me, right? Like, why would you even compare yourself? You know, I put the thing on Facebook where I said, if somebody's comparing you to an online magician or to a YouTube magician, you know, maybe your show's not, maybe it's not the best comparison, right? Or I forget exactly what I said, but the idea there was, you know, people compare me to Copperfield all the time, but it's not a conversation.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
They just go, man, I saw Copperfield too, he was great. Or they compare me to the birthday clown. None of that makes me feel bad, right? None of that makes me feel like those people are more superior to me. If Jabrizi gets better reactions on video by faking those reactions, and in turn that makes magic more popular, I don't mind at all. I don't mind at all, right? Let him fake it a little bit, right? And I know there'll be a lot of people that disagree with that. And if they do, hey, I'd love to talk to you. You know, call me, Facebook message me, and we can talk about it, because I really do think, and I see both sides. I really do see both sides. I do also understand why you could take somebody who's never done magic before, you could just have people scream and react and run away, and now that person would be a magician. But the truth is, Jabrizi doesn't want to be a magician. He doesn't. He wants to be a celebrity. And it's working for him. No different than him being an actor. He wants to be a celebrity. And that's why he's getting so many views on his video, is because he's thinking about not how to do great magic, but how to become a celebrity. And I think it's really working for him. I gave advice earlier on how to be a great magician. Work. The other thing you need to do, don't be an asshole. That's it. Just don't be an asshole. Just try to think about what that other person wants and what you would want if you were in that situation.
Yeah.
And try to have a conversation with you. Imagine that person is your friend instead of your enemy, instead of your Facebook nemesis. How can you really have that conversation and just not be a jerk?
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. That's it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you go check out Brent Braun, he's amazing. If you enjoyed him, he really is amazing. I'm not making this stuff up. He's a great guy. Go check out Just Impossible. We'll be back on September, the middle of September.
Middle of September, we'll have them available at penguinmagic.com.
Okay, well, guys, have a magical life, and I'll see you next time.